Alright everyone, I want to welcome you all back to some more Witch on the Holy Night. Let me tell you guys, playing this game is making me want to play, or making me look forward to, in fact, to Tsukihime Remake. I honestly hope they release that for the console soon because I am very excited to try that one out, because now that I know that we're finally getting some English translations for these visual novels, I just can't wait, you know? So if anything else, we're going to continue on from where we last left off, so I hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you all for the love and support, and let's keep it going. Alright everyone, welcome back.
それで、私の役割はおしまいよ。
Though her words were few, her tone told the whole story. She was telling him to escape by himself.
信じられない。こんなの、青崎だけじゃ壊せないだろ。
私だけならね。でも、今はこの遊園地が味方してる。燃料がこれだけあるんだから、私は重心になるだけでいいんだし。一発でかいのお見舞いしてやるわ。それでも一回が限度だから、穴を開けたら、あんたには全力で走り抜けてもらうしかないけど。
She would carve a path through this iron sea of fences, gambling on one final effort, a great incantation to launch a massive projectile that pushed her limits to the extreme. As an outsider, Sojiro could not even begin to imagine just how much of a burden this would be for her. All he could imagine was a hazy vision of Aoko being left behind in this park. What would happen to her? Would that girl in black come to save her? Cruel as it was to imagine, he knew she would not. After Aoko had exhausted her very best in order to save him, that girl would not stay her hand. The only way Alice would let Aoko off the hook was if Aoko killed Sojiro as payment. And so...
20メートルぐらい離れてて。準備に手間取るけど、その卵の表面が茹で上がるまでには終わらせるから。
It went without saying that this was the only path.
待ってくれ。俺を逃がすって言うけど、それに意味はあるのか、青崎。
ないけど、外に出られたところでアリスから逃げ切れるとは思えないし。けど、これぐらいは最後の意地よ。守るって言ったんだから、できるところまでやらないと。
Surprised by her seemingly moral stance, Sojiro saw Aoko in a new light. Ah, but of course. Sojiro realized that she was not fighting for his sake, but for the sake of her pride.
そうだったな。けど、それなら俺だけ逃がすのはらしくないぞ。
何よ。いいから離れてて。
For some reason, Aoko took a step away from him. She was recalling how an hour ago he had gotten the better of her.
青崎、まだ意地を張れるんなら他のことをやろう。このお化けみたいな鉄柵を壊せるなら他に壊すべきものがあるはずだ。
ないわよ。悪いけど、私は目に見えるものしか壊せないの。最後まで形のない希望にすがるとか考えるのも寒気がする。いい？今はフラットスナークなんかより、この壁を壊してあんたを足抜けさせるのが私の現実。私に負える最大限の責任って。
逃げるのか。
Aoko was just about to turn her back on him when Sojiro clutched her hand. His words caused something inside of her to boil with rage. It was as though someone had set her heart on fire. The surprise that pricked open her true feelings and the disappointment she felt towards herself thawed her frozen limbs.
誰が逃げるのはそっちで、逃がしてあげるのはこっちだって言うのよ。甘く見ないで。いざとなったら遊園地ごと爆破してみせるわ。
そうか。なら、ここで俺を逃がすのは無駄だな。その気迫は本命のために取っておこう。それまでは俺も手伝うから。
は？手伝う？それこそ無駄な気遣いよ。頭きた。いいから逃げろバカ。だいたい走り詰めで息も絶え絶えなやつなんか使えないわよ。
そりゃいい加減ヘトヘトだけど、 そういう青崎なんか疲れ以上に傷の方が傷んでるだろ。
Not to mention the injury to her back that Aoko had nearly forgotten about. Even now, she couldn't ignore the pain that automaton had inflicted on her spine. With iron will, she managed to push it out of her mind, mostly.
ほら、魔術とか抜きにすればまだ俺の方がマシじゃないか。入り口までおぶっていくことぐらいならなんとか。
できないことは口にしないで。もういいから言って。慣れているもの、私は。でもあなたは違う。こういうの初めてでしょ。だからいいの。
The fact that they were a team. The fact that she would still have to kill him after all of this. None of the irony was lost on her as she said these words. Because none of it mattered anymore. Still, Sojiro didn't let go of her hand. He gripped it even harder. His expression was the same as ever. Aoko frowned, trying to figure out if he was upset with her.
確かにこういうのは初めてだ。けど山じゃ危険な目ぐらい合ってる。鹿に襲われたことだってあるんだぞ、俺は。
As a city girl, she had no idea what it meant to be attacked by a deer, but his determination was apparent enough. True. Looking back on it now, he had maintained his composure through it all. A normal person would barely be able to talk through such panic. Perhaps growing up deep in the mountains far from civilization had taught him how to stay calm in the face of so much.
だから信じてくれ。少しでいいから。
He spoke his plain, unadulterated feelings, and released his hand. There was no lie in him. In fact, he was too honest, so much so that she found it hard to believe him. Sojiro had no reason to go that far. As it stood, Aoko had no future. After confessing this and telling him to escape, why did this boy still offer to help a person like her?
わからない。どうしてそこまでするの？私に付き合えばあなたは死ぬのよ。これが最後だからちゃんと考えてよね。あなたはここで逃げるべきよ。
それはわかるよ。でも行かない。
Sojiro answered immediately, realizing that Aoko was looking for his reason. This level of insight in Sojiro demanded a round of applause.
そうすると青崎が死んでしまいそうだ。
His words were as irrational as always.
だからどうしてそこまでするのよ、あんたは。
She was yelling out frustration. After thinking for a moment, Sojiro replied.
そりゃ君が好きだからだろ。
Simple and to the point. His face seemed to ask why she would even question him so. There was a pause, no more than 2 seconds. His surprise attack had stopped Aoko in her tracks. Alice was not the only one who had an ace up her sleeve. That line reached deeper even than Flat Snark could ever hope to. All Aoko could respond with was an expression of pure shock. It was a simple, stubborn reason, the strongest kind on earth. Sojiro Shizuki was indeed incomprehensible to be able to work unconditionally with someone who was trying to kill him. But she felt as though she'd finally grasped a sliver of his true nature. Tobimaru and the others' assessment of him was correct, as vexing as it was for her to admit.
バカね。私はあなたのこと嫌いなのに。
He laughed at her sour grumbling. At this point, he was used to her insults. Their clash of wills ended here. Aoko's blood ran hot from her blazing heart. If he was going to make a face like that, all she could do was try to think of a way to get them both home.
私だって逃げっぱなしは性に合わないし。いいわよ。最後まで粘ってみる。それにしずきくんが付き合ってくれるなら、何かの役には立つでしょ。
Though her tone had lightened, there was still hesitation in her eyes. It was only natural. Aoko had not even a clue as to how to begin to fight the Snark. If only she had been just a bit more skilled or had trained just a bit more, there might have been some way to look for it.
我ながら情けない。 せめて正体を暴く手がかりでもあればいいんだけど。
Without realizing, she let her apprehension show. Whining was pointless. She would just have to figure it out by herself, but
なんだ、正体さえ分かればいいのか？
Alko gave him a look as if to ask what that was supposed to mean.
いや、だからおかしなものはどれかってことだろ？
Sojiro also made a face that suggested she should have brought it up sooner.
わかるのあんた。
多分。いや、結構前から気になっていたんだけど。
Sojiro whispered in her ear quietly, so as to not be overheard.
あ、
It was certainly unexpected. But then again, equally obvious. After he explained the mistake, she knew right away that he was correct. At last, she had an inkling of Flat Snark's original form, namely. They strategized for 10 minutes. After deliberation regarding the Snark's true form and figuring a plan of attack, the two exchanged nods in acceptance of their roles.
それじゃあここからは別行動ね。でもミラーハウスの時みたいなのは勘弁してよ。この作戦の肝はあなたなんだから。開始1分でドジったら本当に打つ手なしだからね。
Though she jabbed him for his previous failure as a decoy, her voice was bright. Aoko's original vigor had returned to her at Sojiro's discovery of the truth. Meanwhile, Sojiro was also getting serious in his own way. He took Aoko's warning to heart.
ならいいけど。いい？さっきと立場は反対よ。失敗したら死ぬのは私じゃなくてそっち。もうフォローに回れないからできるだけ慎重にね。
分かってる。今更ながらやっぱりさっき逃がしてもらえばよかったと思うぐらい慎重だ。
Sojiro nodded, telling her to leave it to him. Though he made it sound like he was holding a grudge, it seemed to him to be the only way of showing her his resolve. Aoko let out a sigh of defeat. Once more, she couldn't figure him out.
ほんと大バカなんだか大物なんだか。でも任せた。期待してるわ、しずきくん。
She had wanted to say that she believed in him, but apparently that was too embarrassing for her. Aoko turned away from Sojiro and began to run. She had begun to think that maybe this change of pace was not so bad after all. And so ended the intermission. The young cast were handed their new lines. But what of the climax? At long last, this Night of Witches had entered its climax. She was filled with foreboding at the Robin's report. Apparently, they had gone in opposite directions. The park's residents had set off after the boy witnessed, and it would take them mere minutes to capture him, so the bird said.
どういうこと？追いかけているのは本当に彼？青子が変装しているのではなく。
The robin flapped its wings, stripping away any doubt. He had seen them with its own two eyes. Aoko was heading for the plaza, and the cocky brat was making a run for the roller coaster.
青子が彼を見捨てた？ですって。そんな簡単なことならいいけど。ダンプティは彼に張り付いているの？
The robin nodded enthusiastically. It didn't know about the other birds, but with its superior night vision, it had seen that sucker clearly because he had moved to a high point.
ダンプティはなんて？最後まで歌わせろ。こんな褒め殺したい間抜けはまたとない。ですって。
Scratch Dumpty was a ticking time bomb that would drop and detonate the moment its target averted its gaze. That is, as long as his target continued to observe him in a way he was genuinely ploy kickshaw, though Alice wished he would forego such niceties within battle.
そうね。視線を切らないだけではダンプティからは逃げられない。表面の死が完成すれば扉が開く。彼がどこまで逃げようと、あと少しでダンプティが閉まってくれるわ。
Until the park, or rather the Snark, was destroyed, Sojiro would not be able to escape. Which meant the larger concern was Aoko. Aoko had promised to protect the boy, which begged the question, where was she running to?
ここにいる限り、青子の動向はつかめない。
Alice looked out over the park, ignoring the rabbit's attempt to get her attention with its plumage. Flat Snark had nearly reached its full size. It was a different breed of beast compared to the other cheap ploys. To her, it was one of her 3 most irreplaceable and precious familiars.
そうね。任せたわ、スナーク。青子が諦めない以上、あなたも手は抜かないで。
Alice remained where she was. With the same historical merit as the troll under the bridge and the poison-clawed reptile, Flat Snark was one of Alice's ultimate ploys. She was placing her trust in its reputation and ability.
でも忘れないで。これはゲームよ。勝敗がついたのなら、私のところに帰ってきて。
The drifting frog The drifting fog ignored its master's words. It was the one thing that Alice had misread. Flat Snark was a king, even among other ploys of terrible vulgar antics. Death to the defeated, gruesome tragedy to the vanquished. It found no pleasure unless it brought about total ruination of life and wealth. The fog billowed like wicked laughter. After all, only a king had the right to decide the fate of the vanquished, and the Snark's greed could not be contained. Thus, it hadn't even the slightest intent to play fair despite its master's orders. Over 100 feet high. One careful step at a time, the figure made its way gingerly up the track stretching into the heart of the amusement park. He stayed his beating chest and the pounding of his breath. Even tiny movements were an obstacle into his progress. Amazingly, the one making this pale-faced advance higher and higher was Sojiro Shizuki. Far below, he saw a horde of bright creatures had congregated by the roller coaster platform. As they bustled this way and that, their numbers continued to increase. As they bustled this way and that, their numbers continued to increase by the minute, seemingly cheering on Sojiro with raised arms as he made his ascent. Or jeered him more, like beckoning him to come down.
助かった。あれ、高いところは苦手なんだ。
Of course, Sojiro neither did. Of course, neither did Sojiro, but his current state was the lesser of 2 evils. The only thing that followed him now was the floating egg. After heaving a huge sigh, Sojiro bent forward a bit and climbed the track that reached to the heavens. 150 feet now. If this were a skyscraper, he would be on the 16th floor. A strong gust of wind whipped through his hair. Humans had an instinctual fear of heights. In particular, a place like this, which called forth visions of falling to one's death, would cause a person's knees to tremble against their will. It was an instinct that forewarned death, urging its master to return to the safety of the ground. It was a reasonable reaction. Climbing the roller coaster tracks went beyond funny stories and into the realm of fantasy. The strong winds and changing air pressure were a hindrance. His instinct screamed at him to stop, causing his limbs to go numb, his muscles to go limp, and his mind to race. Even if he had been tied to a lifeline, a mere 15 feet of climbing would still have caused his thoughts to freeze out of sheer terror. And it would only get worse from here, exponentially so. Every foot forward increased the load on both his mind and his body by another degree.
よし、頂上まであと少し。
burden on his mind notwithstanding, he carefully measured the toll on his body with every step. His legs, which had carried him running this far, threatened to buckle the moment he let down his guard. This fatigue was likely why Aoko had stressed that Sojiro's role was more dangerous than hers.
待てよ。逆を言うと、疲れてなければなんとかなると思ってたんだよな、青崎は。
Sojiro laughed as he stared at the floating egg. He reflected on the course of events that had led to this absurd situation. Not even 10 minutes ago, they had been engaged in conversation.
じゃあ次ね。正体が分かった以上、あとはどう壊すかを話し合いましょう。
Sojiro felt a shudder travel down his spine at Aoko's smug grin. In hindsight, Aoko had been more than happy at this point to make him do something absurd.
どう壊すかって、それなら。
Sojiro had spoken up, figuring that what he was about to say was silly, especially considering Aoko had the magecraft to tear it clean through the fence. Furthermore, up till now, he had not once offered his insight as to the true form of the Flat Snark, only due to his belief that there was nothing they could have done about it even if they were the wiser. But that had changed. For Aoko, the impossible was quite literally within her grasp.
そうでもないわ。私の目算だと、あと50メートル分、ギリギリで届かない。
Despair filled Sojiro's eyes. Aoko lifted a hand to her long hair and with the magical energy in her fingertip cut a clean tuft from her head.
足りない分は努力と根性ってね。あなたはできるだけ高いところまで逃げて。頃合いを見て合図を出すから。そうしたらこれを空に放ってくれる？静か。
But based on where Aoko pointed her gaze, she did not really mean to leave it up to Sojiro to pick the highest place he could find. Aoko was staring conspicuously at one of the amusement park's two main attractions, the roller coaster.
つまり、青崎とは別行動をとって、あの怪物たちに追われながら、高いところに逃げ込めと。
そういうこと。ほら、あのうねうね動き出してるコースターのレールとかよくない？
I don't like that grin on her face right now. Or smirk. There were two demons in this park. Her smile made even Sojiro want to respond that it was far from perfect.
疑いたくはないんだが、本当はあの子とグルで俺を遠回しに殺そうとしてるんじゃないか。
あら、私に殺されるのならいいんでしょ？
人の出現を悪用するのは良くないと思う。
Sojiro hung his head. This was not sane. If he did as she said, he would die from exhaustion before Kitsu even had a chance to eat him.
私だって鬼じゃないわ。ほら、こっち向いて。おまじないかけてあげる。
It was the lightest of touches. Close enough for their breath and skin to come in contact.
Oh.
Saki, he finished with a hushed voice. For one of them, this was a rather mundane magecraft. For the other, it was a head-spinning sneak attack of intimacy.
軽く、弱く、うまく、早く。チクタクチクタク、急げや急げ。
Words that could not be produced by a normal larynx, carrying a peculiar weight to them, reverberated against his eardrums. If words were given colors, these would have been the color of her name, blue. Sojiro's exhausted body and burning blood gently cooled.
飛ぶ、泳ぐ、駆け抜ける。チクタクチクタク、汽笛を鳴らせ。星はいつでも北の空。どこまでも、いつまでも。
In reality, it took but a few seconds. But the sudden contact had felt a little longer, until it ended.
よし！暗示成功！成功したはず！ ここまで手応えがあったの初めてだし。アリスの小言もたまには役に立つじゃない。
A very merry Aoko stood aside a very confused Sojiro. After he asked what the heck had occurred, she responded.
簡単な暗示よ。一時的に恐怖心を消しておいたから、高いところに登っても平気なはず。あの手の作業で一番足を引っ張るのは同様でしょ。恐怖も何も感じなければ、地上何メートルだろうと平均台とそう変わらないってわけ。
He's like, whoa. He seemed to get it. It actually all sounded like Greek to Sojiro, but he accepted it as an explanation of her strange actions. He'd arrived at the summit of the track. At a height of nearly 200 feet, Sojiro had a bird's eye view of the entire amusement park. He was able to spot Aoko's figure right away. In the plaza not so far from here, she seemed to be occupied with something conspicuous. Her surroundings lay still. The breadmen were still busy trying to figure out how to reach Sojiro by trial and error from the roller coaster's entrance. They had over 300 feet of distance to cover.
汗をかくはずだ。こんなに移動したのか。
The strong winter gales quickly dried the sweat on his brow, but he was drenched underneath his shirt. This much sweat was worth at least half a mile run, not to mention all the scares he had experienced throughout the night.
でもよかった。あとは合図を待つだけだ。
He felt a wave of relief, but not at the thought of Aoko destroying the Snark in this nightmarish park. He was simply happy that he could repay a bit of his debt from the House of Mirrors. A blue bullet rose from the plaza where Aoko was located.
合図だ。
Sojiro stood atop the tracks, pulled out the pouch he had stowed in his pocket, and tossed it forward. Without any regard for his questionable footing, he gave it a mighty overarm pitch. The small pouch drew a parabolic curve in Aoko's direction, quickly becoming untied in midair. Inside the bag was the lock of her hair and a small stone weight.
高いところから風に乗せてくれれば、あとは何とかするから。
Aoko had said, but it was Sojiro's effort that had set the plan in motion. The tuft of her hair remained airborne, drifting as if watching over its owner. Sojiro's job was done. His remained concern about the egg hovering over him, but there was nothing he could do about it. Sojiro breathed a sigh of relief and leaned forward to watch the rest of the plan unfold, but then...
むむ
In the corner of his eye, he thought he spotted something familiar approaching Aoko. Ah, it's the mannequin again.
ルートセット。ディレクト1層2層予備に3層。魔力提供体現に固定。循環よし射角よし術式安定大まかよし。
A pattern began to carve itself into the brick street. The casting of an unprecedented incantation with unprecedented range. Keeping the rising tension contained within her chest, the fledgling mage snapped her fingers.
決めた。ツアープランスターマイン。
She kneeled at the center of the formula and raised her head to the night sky. Not even a glimpse of the transmogrified fantasy land around her entered her vision now. Only one thing, one untouchable thing, was reflected in her blue eyes.
実はずっと気になっていたことが。
This is how their conversation started a few minutes prior. Sojiro began with a simple statement of fact. In truth, it really was the simplest of discrepancies. Between the reality of an hour ago and the illusion of the present, a difference both infinitesimal and infinite at the same time.
雲があったから勘違いしたんだろうけど。
It was something hiding in plain sight. Something both seemingly impossible in reality and unusual given its location. In this amusement park where every paradigm had shifted, something was brazenly flaunting its normalcy.
今夜は新月なんだ、青崎。
Alright guys, I'm gonna end the video here for today. Thank you all for watching. I know I'm leaving you guys at another cliffhanger, but we'll figure it out and see what happens in the next one. So thank you all for watching.